I was in grad school for documentary journalism at the University of Missouri in the Murray Center with Robert Greene, who was one of the producers, and he's had his last 4 or 5 movies have been in Sundance and won a bunch of awards, and so it's been great to work with him. And so in my first year of grad school, we were supposed to come up with a concept to pitch to a panel of industry producers. And the idea that I came up with was I wanted to find 2 pastors on opposite ends of the political spectrum, follow them observationally, and then have them come together and talk about current events. I was beginning that casting process of finding my 2 pastors, and then I saw an article, May 15th, 2018, about this ELCA Lutheran pastor in central Pennsylvania who had just won his Democratic primary by running this controversial campaign ad where he burned a gun on a bonfire. And for reference, my dad is an ELCA bishop, and I was like, well, this is just falling into my lap. I don't know how this is happening. And so we got into contact. I reached out to George to see if he would be interested. And well, so backing up a little bit, so I did have that idea for the 2-pastor thing on both sides. But then once this came along, I was like, you know what? This doesn't exactly fit the format that I'm looking for, but you know, I could just switch formats to this kind of campaign journey type story. And so I reached out to George to see if he would let me follow him around for a long time. And then after about a week, he said yes, and then I drove out to Pennsylvania to meet George and the campaign team, and then at that point we were off to the races. And then yeah, that's from my end. What did it look like for you?
Well, first, let's hear it for this guy. I mean, I really hope that this is going to be one of these things where we can all say, I knew him when, right? And so, as Sam said, I got this email from this graduate school student in May, and he said, hey, I'm looking to make a documentary, and I'm looking at, you know, faith and politics, and I was going to do this conservative pastor, liberal pastor interface thing, but he said, I'm kind of interested in your story, can we talk? And so we talked, and he said, I'd like to come and meet with you. And so for me, that was the first time that he was serious about this. You know, because he's in Missouri, and he's willing to come all the way to Pennsylvania to sit down and talk about the idea of potentially doing this project. And as soon as we sat down in the Dunkin' Donuts in Carlisle, I still remember where we were at, we were canvassing that day, and we took a break, and I had a conversation with him, and I just had a really good feel about Sam right from the start. He's a very bright, but very down-to-earth guy, and his concept was fairly well fleshed out, and yet also flexible. And he was willing to work with us, and I was willing to work with him. Now, the good news is that I'm not a political professional, because later on in the campaign, as we got folks with more experience in, particularly during the general election phase, they were like, there's what? There's a documentary being shot? What were you thinking? But, you know, it was great. I think the proof is in the pudding, and that's some pretty good pudding right there.
Well, it's interesting to talk about how people were finding out about the project as it came about, because I was in grad school, and so I'm also figuring out the proper ways of getting access for documentary. You know, observational documentary, that's one of the primary focuses is you know, getting your foot in the door in the right way, and you know, making sure that you are on the same page with everyone that you're working with. And I was basically just figuring that out as I went, and so, you know, it was a fun time to like figure things out with everybody. And yeah, I don't know, where do we go from here? What do you want to talk about?
I think we should open it up for questions. We can all just eat.
Just curious, how many hours did you shoot, and how much did you cut?
Yeah, great question. So I started shooting in June, and then took 9 or 10 trips out to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, and then so I spent cumulatively probably about 6 weeks in Pennsylvania. I shot about 45 hours of footage, and yeah, whittled it down to 28 minutes, and then and this is also, you know, basically just covering election day. I also so for grad school, it was supposed to be, you were supposed to produce this short film that was about 20 minutes or so. And then once things got rolling here in central Pennsylvania, I was like, there's a lot of footage here and a lot of story going on. And so right now, from those 45 hours, I'm looking at like a 70 to 75 minute feature cut with footage throughout the campaign journey. So yeah, about 45 hours.
And were you the only person working? Did you do all the editing? Did you have anyone else helping you?
I had a guy helping me edit. I would do the first passes, and then I would show it to him, and then he would make slight variations. My producers were also looking at the cuts. So my first cut for the short was about 39 minutes, and showed that to my producers. And it's always a matter of like, this feels too long, the pacing's off. We gotta, you know, shave this entire thing. And then this 28-minute version is probably like the 13th or 14th version of the short. So I had people helping me edit, and then Olivia was my other producer who came out during election day. I had an interview assistant for a while. Somebody came out to help with sound for a while. So, you know, it was a team effort.
I would add, I saw the 39-minute version, and Sam and I, yeah, I think you brought it to the house and showed it to me. And Sam and I developed a good enough relationship by then that I could go to him and go, that's kind of boring. And I mean, I'm in the movie, that's kind of dull. I was like, but he did a wonderful job cutting it and splicing it, and really, I think, brought the story together. Two things that I really like about the film. One is that as I look out, so many of the faces in this room are in that film, which I think is wonderful, because so many of you played such an important role in that journey. And that journey, interestingly, was one that started, as some of you know, 2.5 years ago, over in the fire hall here in Camp Hill, when then the Rising Fourth gathered and grilled me for over an hour. My very first foray into politics, I'd registered to run, I think maybe a week or 10 days earlier, and so that was my first public event as a candidate, and I walked out of there going, what have I got myself into? But it was good. You guys did a wonderful job preparing me. The other thing that I really liked about the film is, so during the campaign, I didn't really try to promote or play up my faith. That was a deliberate decision on my part. I was afraid that it might rub folks the wrong way. But I appreciate the way Sam brought out that is a core part of who I am. It just is. And so I appreciate that it showed that intersection of faith and politics, which I was dealing with and my family was dealing with every day. So, yeah, Liv.
Boredom is an interesting topic, especially in observational documentary, because I think, especially when we get to the feature, when we start showing the feature, because it's amazing. It's really striking. Like there are a lot of layers to this. Like you know, well, first of all, I've seen films at festivals that are observational that are like 2.5 hours, and I'll you know, it's like I can't bring my friends to the festival when it's their first film that they're seeing at the festival, because it'll ruin the festival for them. And so it's sort of just, you know, a matter of taste, I guess. But I guess maybe I'm too patient a lot of times. Like I feel like I don't get bored anymore, because if I'm bored, then nothing's going wrong, so that's good. Just in life in general. And so there were a lot of fights in the edit room where I was trying to drag things out, and people were like, Sam, this is way too slow. You gotta cut somewhere. And it leads to moments where, like, I love the shot right after your concession speech, where you're hugging everybody and thanking everybody, but then it shifts tones into this. So it starts with the I'm looking forward to getting back in the groove of things, And to me, that 2-minute long take is showing things aren't going to get back in the groove because you're this political figure now, and things have changed. You know, you've gone through this entire process, and you know, things will never be the same. Yet you are going back to this other process. Stacy, one of my teachers, my producer, was like, "We got to cut that down to 10 seconds. We're going to get back in the groove, and then cut to the next shot." And I'm like, that destroys the entire purpose of what I'm doing. So a lot of fights about, you know, long takes, and you know, and making documentaries too requires a lot of patience. There are a lot of times where you may be, you may have to camp out somewhere for 6 hours to try and get one sound or one image or something like that. But it also, it's just striking a balance. You have the patience, but then you also have to have the intuition, because you have to realize that you may spend 6 hours somewhere, but maybe you're going to waste that entire 6 hours, so maybe you should have cut it off at 3 hours and been like, okay, I need to be somewhere else so that I can capture something else. It's always about being in the right place at the right time, that sort of thing. But yeah, hopefully, you know, so it's okay to be bored, is what I'm saying during the movie at points. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam, I wish you had been able to be at that meeting at the Cantrell Borough Hall, where I was lucky enough to be, because there was a defining moment, I think, when George said, "I don't know where or when we developed this attitude that one group has the monopoly on faith." And there were people of many different faiths there, and beliefs and political leanings, but that really grabbed me, for sure, and I think the group. And so I wish you had been there. I would also be very curious and beg you to pursue pastors of other faiths that are willing to support a person that is not showing us what we believe is true values, being good to other people, helping other people. So bring it on. We'd love to understand them. Honestly, I can't understand it. I'd love to understand them.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with you. That was a lot of the motivation behind this project and what I was doing. I am working on. I have an idea for the next project, and it's along those lines. I can't really say much, but.
Speed it up.
But you know,
I
it'll
thank
be
George for
much
being there
faster.
that
Yeah.
day and saying it that way. And I think it resonated through the campaign, whether you say you emphasized it much, it comes through. The things that some of us here in this group value came through strong and clear. So, thank you. And Donna?
Jan?
Sam, did you find yourself getting like emotionally invested in the outcome, or were you able to be objective?
Oh, that's great. Oh man, I'll try to keep it short. Well, I mean, it's hard to not become invested, and obviously, anytime you're spending so much time with somebody, you develop a relationship. You know, it's part of the feel of things. It's part of the access. It's so I mean, well, and also our politics align. So it's like I you know, want you to win because it would just be a good thing for the community. Objective is we could have a whole, we could talk for hours about objectivity. Yeah, it's I wasn't objective. You know, it's impossible to. I mean, so I don't know, the best way I can put it is that the canvas that we're working with is objective, but any time that I bring my perspective into it, then it immediately takes subjectivity. So, but yeah.
I have a kind of frivolous question, George. How did you feel being followed around all the time?
So at first it was very kind of disturbing, but I will tell you, Sam was very skilled. about being very discreet. When I saw the documentary, I was like, wow, I didn't even know he was filming that conversation on several different occasions. And so he was really a pro at that, about being in the room, but not being intrusive. And so at first it was a little unsettling, but I got used to it because he was so good at it. Yeah, go ahead.
I also gave Sam strict orders to only film me from the waist up. And I kind of became like Sam's mom. I was always looking, where's Sam? Does he have anything to eat? Does he have a place to stay? Does he need a drink? How you doing, Sam? Because long hours. He was always there. And never saying a lot, but just taking it all in. So this was the result of really good work. So appreciate it.
I have two comments. One is for you, George, and having been at that meeting in Camp Hill that first night, you know, I hear your embarrassment about your performance, but you blew most of us away. So it was a remarkable evening and really changed a lot in our little community. So thank you very much. And the second thing, I have a question to Sam, and you know, being from Missouri, anything strike you, what's the thing that struck you the most about Central Pennsylvania in terms of our politics or the political process or?
Yeah, I think I mentioned this to you along the way at some point, is that it just feels so much more grounded, so much more close to home because it's, because you are so close to DC, that it just feels like it's just amplified that much more. And you know, but it is like a, you know, politics are important wherever you go. It's just that maybe there's a better sense of, you know, a better awareness here among voters. Yeah.
Sam, tell us about Bagel Staircase. This was not your first film, correct?
This is there were some shorts produced during grad school under Bagel Staircase, and they're not going to see the light of day because Bagel Staircase came from just me sitting in my parents' house thinking, okay, what are two words that shouldn't go together that I'm gonna think of off the top of my head, and then it was Bagel Staircase, and then but I like using that because I do like doing like strange juxtapositions, you know, things that you wouldn't necessarily think go together, but then once you start putting them together, you start to see it in a new way or a new meaning or something like that.
So how does Bagel and Staircase go together?
They don't.
They don't. Well, and the other purpose behind that name is for people to ask me why I did it and to remember it.
I know this would have been a problem at all if it came out, so I'm assuming the answer is no, but do you have any contact with the Scott Perry campaign other than the couple of TV clips that made it into the documentary? You gave him a little credit.
I did.
That's probably
Wasn't
a funny thing.
Yeah, George did better than anybody has done here in a long time. And I was wondering if you've made a decision on next time, and if you haven't, when do you have to make a decision?
So I have made one decision in that I will not be running for the 10th Congressional District. I put that notice out in the summer. And I did that for a variety of reasons, but one of them is because I feel that there's another candidate, our Auditor General, who I think really can take it to the next level. There are some things that we couldn't get done with my campaign, particularly cracking the nut of York County and Northern York County getting those votes. And I think that for a variety of reasons, I think Eugene can do that. I also have known Eugene since early 2017, before I decided to run. He was one of the folks that I sat down and talked with. And he gave me some of the best advice in that very first time we sat down for breakfast. And he continued to give me good advice throughout the campaign. So I got to know him and to trust him and to respect him. And I think he's done a great job for the state of Pennsylvania as our Auditor General. And I feel confident that with the support of folks in this room and others in the district, that he will run a strong campaign and will be our next congressman for the 10th district. In terms of my future, folks have come and talked to me about other opportunities, and I'm in what I would describe as an exploratory stage right now. Not ready to make any announcements today, but I'm seriously exploring an option or two. Yes.
Is it too late to become a Democratic candidate for president?
Well, we'll have to see what happens with the mayor of New York City. He's got 52 billion reasons why he would be way ahead of me.
No, but seriously, first of all, it's so good to see you. We met you in a living room way back when you were part of our district, and then we got split apart. You were the first candidate that I ever had any desire to work for. You gave me hope that maybe our country could really head in a different direction. And I just wanted to know if you have any words of wisdom about where we should find the hope that we've lost.
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the hope is found first in what we saw in this election cycle that just finished, where we had people running for offices that oftentimes there have not been candidates from both parties. And so I think that's a big part of it. And not just people simply running for the sake of filling a name on the ballot, but actually running. The candidates, my gosh, they've worked so hard in this 2019 campaign. I got to see them not just in Dauphin County and York County, but also in Cumberland County. Tremendous, high-quality people who are just committed to the kind of change that so many of us want to see. So for me, that's the first thing that I see as hope and the way ahead. And then I think the other thing is we've got to figure out a way to have civil conversations, to be able to sit down and listen to and talk with people who we disagree with fundamentally, and yet allow each other to be heard. And that is not easy to do, but we've got to bring it back to that. We've got to step away from this cliff and this adversarial nature that we've got. It doesn't mean that we're going to agree and there's going to be heated discussions and heated arguments, but we can do it in a way without it being so visceral and so hateful. I think that's a big part of it. Yes, Tom.
I just want to reiterate that your first meeting with Rising Forth did blow a lot of us away and inspired us. And I said to Maggie afterwards that the answers you gave, I mean, we threw everything at you. The answers you gave were as good as any national candidate, as any senator I could imagine could give to those questions. We asked you about abortion and gun rights and a variety of really difficult topics, which you handled wonderfully. And you didn't expect all that.
I did not. I did not. Well, I'll give part of that credit to a guy there in the back, Todd Harvey. Wave your hand, Todd. Todd's my old college roommate, and we are lifelong friends, and he has taught me a lot.
Got some stories.
Yeah, he has way too many stories. Actually, never mind. Forget about Todd.
That's a fundraiser.
That's a fundraiser.
You pay him not to tell the story.
As long as there's no cameras in the room, I'm fine with it. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to have a great public high school education with teachers that cared, and that's why I have such great respect and support for teachers throughout central Pennsylvania, and want them to be at the top of the campaign priorities in any effort. And then I was fortunate to have a wonderful education and classmates that I learned as much from as I did from my professors.
Now, you could have been on Meet the Press. I mean, it was that good. That's better than some people that are on.
Yeah, Marta.
I'd like you to both comment on the different perspectives of George as candidate, because most of us met George as candidate, and that you were a pastor and before that you were a military man, and so we saw George as candidate, and then afterwards, when a number of us went over the first Sunday we were back at the church in this building, and for me it was just profoundly both different and the same, because there you were in your religious vestments, and I'd never seen you in that way. You had always been the candidate, and yet it was still you, but it was a totally different dimension of you. And so, Sam, can you comment on your
Take that first.
actually, that's something I think about a lot, is the different roles that we play, the different capacities that we exist in. So I'm sitting here with you right now as a filmmaker. I very rarely in my life feel like a filmmaker, because, how often can you just, I don't think that I'll have a career as a filmmaker. I want to program. I want to find people who should be making the films that need to be made, the stories that need to be made. So yeah, with George, it is just filling the role in the right way, and reaching out to people in the way that you need to. So when you're in that political context, it's now you're fighting for this. You're in this role where you can make real change through legislation, but you have to use the systems that are already there, these political systems, the campaign finance. You have to spend a lot of your time raising money and reaching out to a lot of different groups, hearing them out, listening, and then but then I want to hear from you about how it feels to fill these different roles, and to be a pastor and be taking care of your parish, your congregation. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a case where Lutheran theology actually helps, and personally, if I get this wrong, help me. My fault. I'm a Lutheran pastor there. One of the things that they teach us is that we have multiple callings in life, and those callings are everything from being a son or a daughter, to being a brother or sister, being a spouse, being a parent, and then of course the things that we do with our public lives. And for us, each of us individually, they're integrated, and yet there are times when we'll think about your kids. For those of you that have kids, they don't view you as whatever other roles. You're just mom or dad to them, right? And I can remember as I got older and got to see my parents, once I grew up, I got to see them in their other roles and gain a much deeper appreciation and understanding of who they were and what they had done in their lives, as well as in raising us as kids. And so I think that's part of what unfolded a little bit in the campaign. Was I was focused singularly on that role, and yet you can't help bringing those other roles to the foray, because they're so much a part of you.
I remember seeing that, and politically there were things that you were advised to do, and you said, no, they were not consistent with your values, which were very firmly held, and it was real clear to some people that they weren't going to get you to do things that were not integral to you. And I would think that's one of the things that all of us admired so much, that you were so true to your values. You were so authentic. You were not a politician. You were a man of great value in the political arena.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I guess, I don't know how much, do we have more time, Kathy, or Kathleen?
We have a little bit more time. I wanted to just ask Sam, how can we contribute to making the feature film to help you with that? Would I have a basket? We can pass that around today.
The basket looks like a great way.
Like church. Just like church.
But
Bless it, George. Bless
it. But thank you. You raise a good point, because just like I've talked to George about, it is really interesting to look at campaign finance and fundraising and how much money it takes to run a campaign. I mean, that money doesn't go nowhere. I mean, it's going to a lot of different places. It's the same thing with filmmaking. It costs a lot of money to make this short and then eventually make the feature, based on the travel costs, cost of equipment, post-production. My God, post-production. It's a journey, yeah, and it doesn't come from nowhere. So.
You were talking about adversity before and how you kind of deal with it. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. You're doing 28 minutes. You're going to do 75. Are you going to tackle the last week?
up to Election Day. Are you talking about specifically the attack ad that came out? Yes. So I'm so glad you bring this up actually, because in the 71-minute cut right now, that's the one thing that I've been trying to fit in that I just haven't been able to get in with the pacing, and so that's actually I haven't told anybody this yet, so this is a great audience to tell this to. That's why I've been holding out on the feature, is that I feel like that needs to go in there, and I just haven't found a good way to put it in yet. And so that's basically what's keeping me from getting the feature out in places. So.
Are you getting pressure to do that too from producers and so on?
No, actually, no, the pressure from the producer. Actually, no, the creatively, my producers and I were all on the same page. So that's good. There hasn't been any industry influence to change anything. So that's good. And so no, there really hasn't been any pressure from anywhere. It's just it is a personal thing. It's like that part of it needs to be there. Yeah, there's no way I'm gonna make a perfect film, and there's no perfect film out there. So please, if you have critiques, like I live for that, because like, you know, it's always it's constant recalibration and consistent optimization. You know, we have to be looking for the the closest version of perfection, even though we're never going to be perfect. But yeah, those the adversity that you're talking about, yeah.
Is scared, and me too, very scared, in terms of using language in your film. And when you say observational documentary, is that different than another documentary? It is.
Oh yeah. So well, I mean, there are multiple modes of documentary, and so observational is the one I chose. Well, so I chose.
Deals with adversity.
Yeah. I mean, there are multiple ways to address adversity. The reason I chose observational is in the milieu of all the politics that are going on. You know, this is such an interesting note, because you know, facts and figures are so, fact and truth is so important in documentary, and yet
It's true.
it is, and but the thing I didn't want to focus as much on the figures, because then if you're putting a lot of back and forth figures in your film, then you get the same back and forth arguments between sides that I don't really see results coming from, you know. And this is just me, you know. This is me and my, you know. I would love for 3 or 4 other people to make a film about you. That'd be great. But I wanted to do observational to focus on the humanistic elements of what is going into George's campaign, because that's why I just wanted to walk you through and show through basically George's eyes what is going on, and it's those moments after the concession speech that is showing the processes, what he's going through in his mind. That's what's important to me, the human behind this, and we're seeing all of these. You know, he's a man of great value. This is the kind of person that we want in office. How does someone become that person? You know, what does that person look like in their private life, even though we're never going to see the private life, because there wouldn't be a camera there. But
Someone asked about other ministers, pastors, are they also considered running? And I just feel what George did was truly a path that many of us would want to take. And we don't all have the courage to do that. And so I just mentioned that the adversity is there.
and glad you bring all this up because walking into this project, it became more ambitious than I was planning on. And you know, from there, you get a sense of what we're actually dealing with, what the stakes are. And there are a lot of stakes here. And so then, deciding to make this the project, then there's that burden of responsibility. It's the ethics. It's like, it's, you know, you signing on to trust me to be the one to follow you. That, giving the blessing of that access, then there are so many ethical dilemmas wrapped up in that. I have all of this footage, and there are a million ways to edit it. And it's a matter of trying to, you know, edit it in the most naturalistic for the pacing, but then also to be the most responsible edit that is as close to objective truth that I can get with the footage that I have.
You wouldn't do any more footage?
Why don't we've got a way to let one or two others. I'm sorry, I think it's an important conversation, but maybe one best done. See you, Ursula. See you, ladies. Did you have a question? I know you were waiting for quite a while.
Well, I know too, but on a personal note, I'm a retired PennDOT stenographer, and my husband's into politics, and he had come home excited about you, and he kept saying, Scott this, and I'm like, Scott there? So then he was going to a lot of events, and he said to come along, and I went to a few here and there, and I said, well, I don't think so, and then when I finally did, I let him drag me along, so I was so glad. But the documentary is awesome. It just covers so many aspects of what has to be done. So I want to say thank you to George for what you're doing, what you've done to me, showed me a way to into politics, and I'm glad that I listened to my husband this time.
Thank you. Thank you. There's one thing I do want to mention. As I said, we're in exploring phase, and so if you're interested in potentially helping, should that exploring come to an announcement, there is a sign-up sheet in the back, and the amazing Mike Mounts, who's standing back there growing his No Shave November beard, he's got that. And if you want to volunteer when the time comes, please sign up today. Kathleen, do you want to close this out, or?
Are we done?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm welcome to stick around. I know we had some folks starting to leave, and I'll be happy to.
Yeah, we also have to get the room back into shape before we leave. So thanks everybody for coming out today. Thank you, George. Thank you, Sam. Wonderful documentary. What is your anticipation of when this full-length feature will be available? Will you come back for it?
It'll be in 2020. So actually, in an ideal world, we would be able to do some sort of run with the feature leading up to November 2020.
Okay. All right. So everybody.
Hypothetically.
Okay.
In an ideal world.
Okay. And I guess that's about it. Just don't forget Tuesdays with Kumi. Hit the road, Trump. Noon on Tuesdays, the corner of across the street from Strawberry Square, Walnut Street, across the street from Strawberry. 3rd and Walnut. And December 8th is our next meeting. It's an important meeting because everybody's going to get to have a say in what the future of CRI is. So we want to make sure we come out and help with that. Read Kathy's email. Don't come before you read Kathy's email, though. It has a lot of good information.
One last thing, if you are new to, if you're not part of the Capital Region Indivisible group email, there's a piece of yellow paper back there close to the food. Give us your email address and we'll put you on our listserv.
I just want to say one last thing. So at the film part where Sam was talking about, where after the concession, those hugs, and I know many of you gave those hugs, thank you. Those were such a form of healing to me and to my family. It was amazing. So thank you.
Oh, and one last thing. Let's thank Lisa. She did so much work to get this put together. Thank you.
And then one even more last thing. If you are interested in keeping up with me, I have business cards. You can reach me at sam@bagelstaircase.com is my email. Bagelstaircase.com is the website. I'm on Holy Fire's on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. It's on Instagram. Just type in Holy Fire and it should pop up. So yeah.